Much like Kate said, I think everybody in this room you're likely here because you've already had a transformative experience in a canoe or on the land or on a bike. And as part of having a transformative experience, you believe in it and you want to share it with others. And so I have the privilege this evening to introduce Rodney Fuentes, Don Watkins, Glen Caradus, and Avery, all from an area just an hour and a half northeast of here, in actually similar territory than where we are now in the Mississauga territory. And these folks, their passion is to bring transformative canoe experiences to youth that wouldn't otherwise take part in a canoe experience. And so they're doing this for their first time. And so Rodney is a documentary filmmaker. He's an outdoor enthusiast himself. I happen to know him through his lovely wife, Annie, and have the privilege of knowing all the folks that are here from Peterborough because as the ED of the Canoe Museum, this is a program that we've been involved with from the beginning and had the privilege of seeing grow up and become what it is now. So I'm going to turn this over to Rodney, Don, Glen, and Avery to bring you this wonderful film about the experience and the impact it's had on some of the youth that are in the Peterborough area. So over to you, Rodney. Thanks.
Thank you. Can you hear me? I can't hear myself. Thank you very much. I'm Rodney Fuentes. I'm a filmmaker. And there's this wonderful event called Adventure and Understanding happening in Peterborough, which is a canoe trip for 100 kilometers from Peterborough to Curve Lake First Nation. When I heard about this just a week before this event happened, I was told and asked if I wanted to film this and cover the story. And once I hear what it was all about, I just couldn't resist, and I said, yes, I'm definitely in. And one of the reasons because of that is, well, I have a background in the environment, and I also am an immigrant. I'm from Venezuela, and one of the things that allowed me to get in touch with the culture of Canada was a canoe. So I fell in love with the project right away, but one of the main things with that, from all the environmental studies I've done in the past, is that this is the first time I'm involved in a project that is more than just talking about the environment. We're talking about the people that live in it. And it's a big thing understanding that the people who inhabit there, like the indigenous people that you're going to see in this trip, they are part of the environment as well. And it was actually a pretty big learning process for myself as well. And just kind of to see the world and the environmental world with a different sort of eyes. Won't take much time because there are more people talking about this, but I'm going to introduce the documentary. It's only 8 minutes. It's very short, but it kind of, you can see what the program Adventure in Understanding is all about, so you can learn a little bit about this program. And as well, after that, we're going to bring the people behind the scenes, and that makes this wonderful program possible. They want to be talking about it. And of course, there's one person in this team that she was paddling, and she's going to tell about the stories that she learned and her experiences during the last trip of Adventure and Understanding. So if we have the video cue, go for it. Thank you.
We're rich with lakes, we're rich with beauty, and we're rich with people. And Peterborough is becoming more multicultural. And I think to everyone's benefit, that we have a lot to share. And what better way to share is through a journey by Canoe, where you can appreciate along the way not only the beauty of the land, but the beauty in the people. And everyone has something to offer.
I've canoed before, but I've never done something quite like this. So it's a whole new experience for me.
100 kilometers in 5 days. I didn't know that was possible.
The Adventured Understanding is it's an initiative to bring youth together. So when there's a lot of talk in Canada about reconciliation, so this would be an example, bringing youth together, Indigenous youth, non-Indigenous youth, exchange students, new Canadians, and spending time together. So being in the canoes, being out on the land, time to connect with each other, opportunity to learn about the land around us, what sustains us, time to connect with the forests, the fields, the wetlands around us, and time to connect with the long history of the Mississauga Anishinaabe people of the Kawartha Lakes.
We met quite a bit of elders. We probably met about like 3 elders. And then each of them was talking how precious the water is to their people. They taught me this water teaching about how important water is to us. And when spring comes and the ice melts, it's like Mother Earth's water breaking. And when a woman is carrying a child and when she gives birth, her water breaks as well. So we all start in water. Water is everything to us.
In our culture, water is life. It sustains us, but it's also the importance to us for the plant life, the animal life, the creatures in the water.
What I took from this trip is just like how much you have to like respect the land and the water.
And the whole idea of this park is to think about, we live in the cities, but what can we do to make our cities green? So that's really what this place is about. Whether it's putting a pond in your backyard, whether it's planting trees, whether it's planting a pollinator garden.
More and more we see the change, and it's not good change. And we have always been taught that everything is in balance. So, without those things, then we are heading for trouble. We need to make sure that we're nurturing and caring and doing whatever we can to preserve and conserve the plant life, the vegetation, the animals, and because this all comes back to us too.
For safety, safe passage on the water, so we're going to sprinkle some sema or tobacco on the lake here. Start our day.
Down, we will see the full moon rising up high in the sky.
We learned drums yesterday and the knowledge and wisdom they possess on people's connection with nature. It was sort of cool to open up what I know about sort of the world with that native knowledge.
Welcome to Kirk Lake, guys.
First Nations relationship with non-First Nations has not always been an easy relationship, and that continues to this day. So on both sides there's a lot of anger, a lot of mistrust, and that's difficult to work through. And so you try and figure out ways to get over that. Try and figure out ways to engage those two different sides, opposing sides, because we're not really that different.
We've had new Canadians from Africa, Iraq, Syria, and it is always really neat to hear that, yes, we come from different cultures, but there's so many similarities. That's always really neat. So yeah, I think that's just invaluable opportunities to spend time together. So.
We share this earth. We have no choice but to share this space. So what we need to do is get over that fear, that anger, and start working towards a better path where we can both follow, where we can both sides can come together and care for this place. And I think that's the basis of this Adventures in Understanding, is bringing people that don't understand about each other yet, giving them the opportunity to get to know each other through stories, through culture, through traditions, through language, and build on that relationship. Because I think what happens in events like this is that those youth then go back to their home communities, and it spurs them on to do other things that engage with the earth and with other people. And it replaces some of that fear with love and tenderness and kindness. And that's always a good thing.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now we're going to hear and learn a little bit more about the project Adventure and Understanding. And with me here is from the Rotary Club of the Peterborough-Kawartha, Don Watkins.
Thank you. So I am a member of the Rotary Club of Peterborough-Kawartha. I'm chair of the Adventure and Understanding Committee, and I'm the registrar of this annual event. As it said in the video, Adventure and Understanding is an annual 6-day co-ed 100-kilometer canoe trip during the last week of August that travels up the Trent Severn system from Peterborough to Curve Lake First Nation. I developed the program in response to two events which occurred within a few weeks of each other in the fall of 2012 at Trent University. One was information in that year's Jack Matthews lecture by Joseph Boyden about an elder using a walk with young people from the James Bay area to the first Truth and Reconciliation event in Winnipeg as an opportunity to share cultural information. The second was a presentation by James Raffin of the Canadian Canoe Museum relating the story of Canada One, the Canadian canoe in the Queen's Jubilee Flotilla. And there actually was an aha moment when I realized that we could encourage young First Nation and non-Native Canadians to share a canoe trip on the Trent Severn waterway that flows through and around Peterborough. The program is offered by our Rotary Club in cooperation with Camp Kawartha, the Canadian Canoe Museum, and Curve Lake First Nation. So the canoe trip puts First Nations and non-Native youth together, puts them in touch with the water, with the air, the plants, the animals, and most importantly, with each other's culture. We are aware that there are similar programs, such as the annual 10-day Pulling Together Canoe Journey on the West Coast, that are designed to bring together youth from First Nations communities with the police and other public service agencies. And we know there are also programs to improve the relationships with youth at risk. But that's not our focus. Everyone who takes part in our program is expected to have a healthy participation in their peer society, and they should be proud of their cultural heritage and motivated to both learn and to share their cultural identity. The first trip was in 2014. It took us a couple of years to get all the paperwork and all the details looked after, but the first trip in 2014 had 4 youth and 3 leaders. By the third trip in 2016, we reached our goal of 20 youth and 4 leaders. This past trip, the one you saw in this video, had First Nations paddlers from Yarmouth and Kentville, Nova Scotia, from Akwesasne, Quebec, and from Alderville and Curve Lake in Ontario, as well as 3 Rotary International Exchange students from Australia, New Zealand, and Mexico, and non-native Ontario residents from Bolton, Cornwall, Gravenhurst, Kingston, Lakefield, Lindsay, Tillsonburg, and Peterborough. We have just recently opened applications for our 6th trip, which will begin on Sunday, August the 25th this year. Applications are processed on a first-come, first-reserved basis. By chance, we have been fortunate each year to have approximately equal participation by First Nation and non-Native youth. We receive applications from individuals and also from Rotary clubs and other organizations who are willing to pay the $360 registration fee on behalf of members of their community. At this point, we think that 24 participants, 20 youth, 3 qualified leaders, and our program coordinator, traveling in the 3 larger Voyageur canoes you saw in the video, we think that's our maximum in order to ensure adequate opportunities for learning about the flora and fauna of the area, for learning about each other, and about the Mississauga Anishinaabe culture that is central to the program's purpose. So rather than trying to enlarge our crew or duplicate the program at another time of year, or develop a corresponding event for an older middle-aged group, because a lot of older people are saying, why can't we go? The goal of our Rotary District is now to encourage each of the 30 other district clubs that are situated next to First Nations communities to reach out to their neighbors and together develop a mutually beneficial program that may or may not be canoe-based, but something they can do together to reach out in a sense of reconciliation, starting with better friendship, leading hopefully to cooperation and greater understanding. That's the purpose of our program.
Hi. Okay. Hi. I'm Avery. I'm 16, and I went on this trip this past summer. This trip was such a wonderful experience for me. I think specifically for me because I am from Peterborough and Stony Lake, which is where we journeyed over these 6 days. And getting to learn about my home in an entirely new way and getting to travel through it in a way which I never had before has been unlike any other experience I've ever had. So this trip was really great for me. One of the great things about it was the people who were there with me. You might think that being with 20, 16 to 18-year-olds for 6 days would be very draining, but it was amazing. We got to learn about each other and form friendships in a way we never had before. Every day we had tasks like making food, moving canoes, or putting up our tents, and we really had to learn about each other and our strengths and our weaknesses, as well as ourselves, so we could form a community and be placed in these roles so we could work together to a common goal. Another difficulty that arose was paddling in a Voyageur canoe for hours on end under the hot sun with 8 other youth. So that is very difficult, but we really had to find a rhythm with each other and with the water. And when we got tired and we needed a break, we couldn't necessarily take one because someone else might be tired as well. So we really had to think about others before thinking about our own needs, and that has proved very useful to me. As well, the friendships I made on this journey were unlike any other. The only thing I can compare them to is the friendships I made when I was just a small child, because we were away from our phones for 6 whole days, which I think is... Thank you. Honestly, that's the best thing that's ever happened to me. I'm sitting down with someone, and we genuinely just want to get to know each other. We want to learn about their life, they want to learn about ours. We want to learn about their background, their families, what they like, what they don't like. And it had no pretenses like followers on Instagram or Snapchat streaks. It was just from a genuine place of wanting to know about each other and really just wanting to connect. As well as the people, I made great connections with the land and the water in this area. The fresh air and the exercise I got for 6 days has made me feel stronger and more capable than I ever had. As well, in this trip, we had the opportunity to learn from some elders in the Curve Lake and Peterborough community. One of the teachings that stuck with me, which was one of them that you actually saw in the video, is that when spring comes and the ice melts, it's like Mother Earth's water breaking. And that really stuck with me because it really highlights for me the importance of water in our lives. We are born in water, and we need water every single day to survive, yet we're treating it so horribly. Especially for myself, I think this is important because I'm a 13th generation settler in Canada with a cottage on Stony Lake, so looking after this water and caring for it is my responsibility. And this trip has actually given me the resources I need to look after this water. We got the opportunity to hear James Weetung talk about wild rice, or monomen, which is essential to the water systems in this area, and it is an essential food source. So I've decided, with James Weetung's advice, that I'm going to plant wild rice in Stony Lake, and I hope that may make a difference in the environment, and I really hope it'll spark an interest in my community to also try and do something to improve this. Lastly, I just want to mention the one thing that was probably the most important to me throughout this trip. On the first day, we picked up a tree at Beavermead Park, and then we carried it with us for the whole 6 days until reaching Curve Lake. We cared for it, and we put it in our canoes, and we slept with it in our tents. And then right before we all parted ways, we planted this tree in the Curve Lake Cemetery, next to the grave of a man who had been uprooted from his resting place in the construction of a parking lot and then relocated to the cemetery. This tree, for me, is really a symbol of hope. It represents the friendships I've made with youth, both visitors, settlers, and Indigenous to Canada. And it really represents to me that there is hope for a future generation to live harmoniously together and with nature. A month or so after this trip, I actually went back to the cemetery, and I brought water to this tree, and I said thank you to it, and it reminded me how important it is to communicate with each other and with the land, and how wonderful this experience has been for me. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone. It's wonderful to be here. I haven't been here since the last time I was here was 1996, so it's nice to be back. And it's hard to follow up the words of Avery. Thank you very much. That was very moving to hear that. It's been a journey for myself, growing up in Kingston, Ontario. I've been in Peterborough 30 years, and I look back on my youth and, just thinking about the lack of connection to the land around me, and certainly the lack of connection to the history of First Nations people in Canada. So I've been on a bit of a journey myself through the adventure and understanding in learning more about the Mississauga and Anishinaabe people of the Kawartha Lakes region. And what better way to do it than in a canoe? We were hoping to have an elder here tonight. We were really hoping for that. Someone from Curve Lake or an Indigenous youth on the program. That didn't happen, but we are delighted to be here. I can say also that I'm quite excited that we now have a giant floor map that we roll out, and it replicates the trip. So we now have a board game that it's part of the Camp Kawartha Indigenous Awareness Program. So the kids roll the dice, they move their canoes through the board game and ask questions about reconciliation, Mississauga history, ecology. So I'm hoping to get that board game into a lot of schools and have a lot of schools come to Camp Kawartha so we can get the word out. And they'll be watching this video to start off, as much as I don't want to put kids in front of screens, but it has its place. So we're quite excited about that program and getting this story out. And I'm very happy that Don talked about the hope that other Rotary clubs will replicate this trip. And for anybody in this room, any thoughts that you have, because I think there's tremendous opportunity for getting to know our neighbors, getting to know the First Nations people, moving towards reconciliation. And Yeah. I don't know if I can break protocol here if there are any questions. I don't know if you normally do that. I was told I had 10 minutes, but maybe not. Any questions? I feel like it was something else I was going to say, but we're going to be here. We're not here tomorrow, so if anybody, we will be here this evening, and we do have cards with the website, so if anybody wants more information or wants to contact us, or to spread the word about this video. Can I tell them how to access the video, Rodney? Is that public information that they can go to the Google machine to get this video? Okay. So how do they access the video? It's on the website, yeah. Okay, yeah. So show the video to people. Get the story out there. What more can I say? I think I'm quite excited because this video can do the talking for me now. So, and I do want to thank Jim Raffin because James, you've definitely inspired me years ago with your paddling and your stories, and and our Connected by Canoe trip that we did 2 years ago, which was very much in the same spirit as this trip. So it's very nice to see you here this evening. So thanks, everyone.